One evening, after their parents had gone to bed, Sia and Amadou found themselves in their room again. The air was thick with tension, and neither of them knew how to break the silence. "I don't know what's happening to me, Amadou," Sia whispered, her voice trembling. "Every time I'm near you, I feel something I can't explain. It's like I'm drawn to you in a way that doesn't make sense." "I feel it too, Sia," Amadou admitted, his face pale with confusion. "But it feels wrong. I know it's wrong, but I can't stop it." Sia looked at him, her eyes filled with tears. "What if we're doing something terrible? What if we can't go back after this?" Amadou shook his head. "I don't know. I don't know what to do. But I don't want to hurt you, Sia. You're my sister." "I'm your sister," Sia repeated, the words feeling heavy in her mouth. "But I don't know how to fight this, whatever it is that's between us." As the night wore on, their emotions swirled in a mixture of confusion, love, and guilt. They wanted to find a way out, but they didn't know how. The secret they shared was tearing them apart, and the fear of their father's anger hung over them like a shadow. The next morning, Alhaji sat down at the kitchen table, deep in thought. He had spent hours tossing and turning in his bed, trying to figure out how to fix his family. The more he thought about it, the more he realized that he could no longer handle this alone. He called Muhammad again, his voice shaking. "I've decided I can't wait any longer. I need to take drastic action. I've already lost control of my children, and I fear if I don't do something now, it will be too late." Muhammad's voice was calm but firm. "Alhaji, please listen to me. Don't make any hasty decisions. You cannot force them to change. If you want to, save your family. You must show them love, not punishment." Alhaji was silent, the weight of his brother's words heavy on him. He wanted to believe that Muhammad's advice was the right path, but he felt so powerless. He looked up and saw his children enter the room. Their faces were strained, and the tension between them was palpable. Alhaji's heart ached as he realized just how close they were to losing everything. Sia and Amadou exchanged glances, unsure of what to say. Alhaji stared at them, the words stuck in his throat. For a moment, it felt like the world had come to a standstill. "Father," Sia said softly, breaking the silence. We don't know what to do. We're sorry. We never meant to hurt you." Amadou nodded. "We don't want to destroy the family, but we don't know how to make these feelings go away." Alhaji's eyes filled with tears. He wanted to say something, anything that would make them understand. But all he could do was reach out and pull them into a tight hug, the weight of their secret pressing down on him. "I love you both," he whispered, his voice breaking, "and I will do whatever it takes to help you." The days that followed seemed longer than ever. Sia and Amadou kept to themselves, their emotions a swirling mess of confusion and desire. They knew they couldn't stop the feelings growing inside them, but every time they thought about their parents and the consequences, fear gripped their hearts. They couldn't let their parents find out, but they couldn't ignore it either. One evening, the family sat together in the living room. It was a quiet night, the sound of the wind rustling the trees outside the house, the only noise that filled the air. Alhaji had gone to bed early, exhausted from a long day of work, while Mariama was in the kitchen, preparing food for the next day. Sia and Amadou were alone in the living room, sitting on the couch. The tension between them had been building for days, and tonight it felt stronger than ever. They didn't know what to say to each other. They both felt something that neither of them could explain. Sia, looking into her brother's eyes, felt the familiar connection, but this time it felt deeper, more intense. Amadou shifted closer to her, his heart pounding in his chest. He could feel the heat of her body. The closeness that had always been comforting now felt electric. He reached out, brushing a strand of hair from her face, his hand lingering on her cheek. "Sia," he whispered, his voice thick with emotion. Sia's breath caught in her throat. She could see the same longing in his eyes that she had felt for so long. Slowly, without thinking, she leaned in closer to him. Her lips brushed against his, At first gently, almost like a question, but then, as if they both couldn't stop themselves, the kiss deepened. It was their first kiss, and it felt like the world had stopped. The room, the house, the city, everything else faded away. In that moment, there was only them. They were no longer siblings, no longer children. They were two people, lost in each other. When they pulled away, their faces were flushed, both of them breathing heavily. Neither of them knew what to say. They stared at each other, eyes wide with disbelief at what had just happened. But neither of them could deny what they had just shared. "I didn't mean to," Amadou started, but his voice trailed off. He didn't know how to explain it. "I didn't either," Sia whispered back, her hands shaking. "But I can't deny how I feel." For a moment, neither of them moved, both unsure of what to do next. They had crossed a line, and now they had to live with it. But as they sat there in silence, something shifted between them. The kiss had been a release, but it also opened a door to something neither of them could take back. Suddenly, they heard footsteps in the hallway. Their parents were coming back. Sia quickly pulled away from Amadou, her heart racing as she stood up. "Let's go to our room," she whispered urgently. "We can't let them find us like this." Amadou nodded, and they hurried to their room, trying to act normal as they passed the kitchen. Their parents were still talking, unaware of the secret their children were hiding. Once inside the safety of their room, Sia and Amadou locked the door behind them. The room felt smaller than usual, the weight of their actions pressing on them. They sat on the bed, both of them unsure of what to say. Sia was the first to speak. "What do we do now, Amadou?" Amadou swallowed hard. "I don't know. I don't want to hurt anyone, Sia, but this feeling, it won't go away." Sia nodded, tears welling up in her eyes. "I feel the same way. But if we keep going like this, what will happen to us? To father? To mother?" The silence that followed was heavy. They didn't have answers. All they had was each other, and that was both comforting and terrifying. As the night wore on, they found themselves unable to sleep. The kiss, the shared secret, the growing feelings, it was all too much to handle. But despite the fear, they couldn't deny that they were drawn to each other, even more now than before. They lay in bed side by side, unable to look away from each other. And then, without a word, they both shifted closer, as if their bodies knew what their minds were too afraid to admit. In the darkness, they kissed again, more desperately this time, as if the act could somehow erase the guilt they felt. It wasn't just a kiss anymore. It was everything they had been hiding, everything they had been feeling, all poured into that one moment. They didn't know what would happen next. They didn't know if they could stop what was happening between them. All they knew was that, at that moment, they were completely consumed by each other. The next day, everything felt different. The secret between them was no longer something they could hide. It was alive, breathing, pulsing with the same intensity they had felt the night before. They had crossed a line that could never be uncrossed. Al-Haji had noticed the strange behavior in his children, but he hadn't said anything. He couldn't bring himself to believe that what he had seen between them was real. Perhaps it was his own denial that kept him from acting on his suspicions. But deep down, he knew that something was wrong. Sia and Amadou continued to share secret moments, their love growing stronger despite the consequences. But as the days passed, the fear of being discovered weighed on them more and more. They had to be careful, or their world would come crashing down. Days turned into weeks, and the tension in the Kamara household grew thicker with each passing moment. Sia and Amadou's secret became harder to hide, their stolen moments together more frequent. Every glance, every touch, felt like a thread pulling them deeper into a tangled web they couldn't escape. But the guilt gnawed at them, especially when they saw the worried looks their parents gave them. They had to be careful. They had to be perfect in hiding their feelings, or everything would fall apart. Al-Haji, however, couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. Every time he saw his children, they seemed different, distant, and yet closer to each other than ever before. He had started paying more attention, watching them in silence. His suspicions grew stronger, but he didn't want to believe it. Not yet. He couldn't bring himself to confront them. Not while he still held hope that it was all in his head.